My Shiranui is too booby for the good boys and girls of Smash Ultimate.
And if you don't know who Mai is, she's like fucking...
She's on the screen.
She's a King of Fighters, dead or alive character. There you go, good.
Hello and welcome to the Two Step Podcast. I'm Bag, and as always, joining me is Mac.
Hello.
So let's talk some shit, brothers. So we got more Blizzard stuff, as per usual. This is basically the Blizzard podcast at this point. We got Norman Reedus and the Funky Fetus, aka Death Stranding. We got a bunch of companies that are promising you the world and more, but you're actually getting jack shit. And then I couldn't come up with a title for the last one. So here we go.
I couldn't come up with a title for the last one.
Listen,
Look,
my duck is not crooked.
If it's one thing you know about Two Step, its naming is not good. We can't do names.
Fucking lazy.
And we're fucking... Yeah, that's the real thing.
That's the real thing.
That's the real problem.
Right. He's fucking crooked because he doesn't want to sit straight. See, if I try to straighten him out, he just falls off. He's crooked because that's the only way he'll sit, okay? Anyways.
Duck boy.
So, starting out, Blizzard, they're doing things. And those things aren't really all good things. Some of them are okay things, but they're not all good things. Nah. So...
Generic PR wank.
Yeah, that's gonna be a lot of what they did, but, one thing that I knew was going to happen because Hearthstone is dying. I mean, not money-wise, but like popularity-wise, they're dying.
I never like that word, dying. It's so...
They're dying. They're in their death throes.
Absolute.
$0 being earned. But,
yeah, that's why I don't like the term, because they're not dying, right? They're just... Yeah. They've lost significant amounts of popularity compared to other games at the time. I mean, but honestly, the card game genre, I think, in general, is bleeding players. I mean, it's a costly fucking genre. What do you expect?
But it's always
been.
And
there's too many of them.
Yeah, it's like streaming services. When there's too many of them, no one makes money. But,
yeah, I mean,
so
that's just the issue with the internet.
They're getting into the auto-battler scene, which is basically like...
Interesting.
Yeah,
it's very
I knew it would be
version,
coming. But yeah.
You know what? It's funny because it's basically Heroes of the Storm auto chess in the sense that Heroes of the Storm, when it came out, ignoring the fact that the reason I believe Heroes of the Storm did badly, I think it did badly because it came out way too late, right? They waited way too long to ever release it. But ignoring that, the thing about Heroes of the Storm compared to like Dota 2 and League of Legends is that it's way more simplified, which is what I enjoyed out of it, personally. But that's the problem. That's going to be, I think, the resounding issue with Hearthstone's auto battler.
Well,
it's basically a really simplified version of auto chess.
Yeah, I watched Crit play a little bit of it. It looks very simple, but it has
I don't see the point.
It does have a cool mechanic in it though. Just the fact that like you're using the cards basically infinitely to buff up your board.
Yeah.
I think that mechanic is actually
as long as it's... I like the idea that you don't need to have a deck to play it, though. I mean, that's really it. I think there are some really cool kind of concepts that could happen with this, because I didn't mind Hearthstone as a game, but Hearthstone is prohibitively, nowadays at least, is extremely expensive, and that's ignoring all the balance issues that I had with the problem with the game on a personal level.
Honestly, extremely expensive is like underplaying how expensive it is.
The reality here is that it used to give you expansions, and they used to release one or two expansions a year, and you'd pay like $30 for the expansion, and you'd go and you'd get a bunch of cards so long as you could beat the encounters in that expansion. That was the way it worked, right? But then they decided, fuck it, we're just going to release a new pack every like 4 months, and you're just going to have to buy them. You're just going to have to buy the cards, get fucked. And when they release a fucking... Right? And the thing here is that they still release adventures that you have to pay for if you want to actually play them fully. You just don't really get fuck all out of them by comparison, like what you used to. And
yeah, you don't get any
cards,
card
games.
The adventures are actually pretty good.
They are good, but the reality is that you still have to spend a lot of money or resources right? Either gold or real money to actually unlock them fully. And the problem here is that all card games are doing this. It's not just Hearthstone. Like, even games like Eternal and Magic are releasing fucking new packs way too quickly. Like, the whole limitation with things like physical card games was actually having to physically make the cards and then physically release them. So that kind of delayed the whole process of making a new pack, making a new fucking whatever. Which,
yeah, it was super
other than the designing
in Magic the Gathering, because years ago, because I played Magic a long time ago, right? And the funny thing is that the cards would be of such limited stock, and you physically had to find people that had them, right? It wasn't like you could just buy the card with whatever, you just put the funds in and you get the card. It was like, well, you got to find somebody that has the card, and they have to be willing to sell it to you. Yeah, you either RNG through packs if they're still selling packs with the cards in it, or you have to find singles. And singles are generally cheaper in the long run, but they're still kind of expensive if you want a meta deck, for instance. Yep.
Which is why digital is great, but digital has but the reality is that digital now has the downside where they're trying to monetize the fuck out of it by releasing packs all the time, because now they just have to design the cards and design new mechanics, and then once they've done that, then easy. No. Wow.
So they try to anyway.
They can. They can, and they are, just in a different, new creative means.
But yeah, we'll see. We'll see how the auto battler thing from Hearthstone happens. I mean, it could be good. It's got an interesting angle that it's trying to take at the whole thing, but
yeah, I mean, Artifact could have been good too, but we saw how that went.
That's what I'm saying, dude.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm hesitant to see, because so far for me, speaking of TFT, the new TFT patch is actually not that entertaining for me, simply because I get what they were trying to do with the new card set, basically is what they were doing, but I feel like they did too much, because the game was already slightly difficult to understand, right? They've overamped the difficulty of it now. If you've seen anything of the new TFT, they added another hexagon layer, a fourth row, which is fine.
Really?
Because that should have been in the game originally. It's how the Dota 2 version was, and the lack of that fourth hexagon row really made it difficult to position properly. But it does make it more difficult. And they added in rotating elements, which affect each game has a different element, and it affects all of the cards in the entire game. Certain cards will be a different element depending on what element the game just rolled to be as, which is cool because it gives some variety to the game. You never know what you're going to get into. If it's a fire element, then certain cards will be better. That kind of thing, which I think is cool, but it's just layering the difficulty over and over and over and over again. So I'm actually falling out of favor with that game.
Yeah, I think the problem, and again, I didn't mind teamfight tactics, but I think my biggest issues, which we've already discussed personally before, right, is it's very, very bad from a new player perspective. It's very confusing for new players. You're not given any real information on basically anything. And because, of course, all the information in the game comes in, there's plenty of tooltips that will tell you the heroes' abilities and their stats and stuff, but of course, it's a time-based game. You don't have time to just go through and read all of those, right? So so I had to sit there to actually understand the basics. I had to sit there and Google the heroes and what they do, and then Google all the item combinations and what they do, and then you have to have a legend up at the same time to figure out what item combinations do what, and that's fine, but that should be in the game. Right, the reason why I ultimately preferred Dota Underlords, personally, is because, one, it has a PvE practice mode. You can just play with bots to practice, which is very, very good for learning the basics of the game. And because of that,
honestly surprised that doesn't exist still.
If that was and that's the thing, I think Teamfight Tactics is a much more interesting, engaging game, but it's way too new player unfriendly. And if it had a bot mode where you could practice, like the fucking League of Legends does itself, right?
League has a fucking
it'd be fine.
It has a practice tool where you can just manipulate the game and you can reset it within that and just go back and retry and go back and retry and move around infinitely and do whatever you want. I feel that it's kind of baffling that it's officially out now. It's not in its little beta phase anymore. And it still
yeah,
just
and they didn't add that at all.
It still just doesn't exist.
Doesn't have
you know?
shit.
So it's like,
Yeah, quality
okay,
of life
whatever.
features are effectively non-existent. So why should I care? I don't, basically.
That took so long.
Yeah,
But yeah,
I think I'd be better off
just
just playing the original auto chess.
baffling.
You know, at the end of the day.
So like,
That's why
I think
bother.
that they're doing good things, but we'll see. Moving on, Diablo 4. We're being like drip fed news about Diablo 4 at this point. You can expect to get like little tiny news articles with like one feature that they're gonna have for the next like 4 years is how it's gonna work.
And a bunch of fucking Twitter quotes out the ass.
So the two interesting ones that we are mentioning today, there's other ones, but they're irrelevant completely, is that supposedly there's going to be 100+ towns to visit. The thing that I'm wondering about this is, are they like Witcher 3 towns, where it's just like 2 or 3 little huts where there's like a person there that you can talk to do a fetch quest? Or are these like actual real towns? I mean, we all kind of know it's going to be the
alternatively, no, what we know is it's going to be worse than that. They're marking it as 100 towns, and then ultimately they'll cut them all because they couldn't make the room for them in development.
Yeah.
The point being is that when we have a topic list here that says promising you the world, but that's what Blizzard is also doing, and there's no way that not even like half of the stuff that they're promising could be cut. I'm not saying it would be. We don't know that, but it's very possible that it could be. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Is that what I know?
see. But yeah, the other thing is that they are going to be doing microtransactions, which the thing that worries me, it's very obvious, but they just said microtransactions. They did not say
explain what they are.
Cosmetics.
That could be cosmetics, but it could also be things like stash tabs like Path of Exile does. It could be things like different characters, like additional fucking character slots, right?
So that's
name
the thing
changes,
that
basic
me,
shit. And the problem here is not that they have
go all in on
microtransactions. Yeah, the problem to me is not they have cosmetic microtransactions. I know that upsets some people. Oh, they have microtransactions in a $60 game. Oh, what the fuck? It would be fine. I don't actually have an issue with cosmetic microtransactions in a paid game, assuming that it's a live service model. That's really the difference here, right? Assuming that if the game's like Warframe or Destiny, where you know that you're going to get a bunch of free updates, yeah, it's fine. I know why they have to have some form of monetization. And the reality is that nobody's going to pay $15 a month anymore, like they do with World of Warcraft, right? Nobody does that.
Except for World of Warcraft.
Nobody's going to pay. Except
only thing that
and Final Fantasy.
And Final Fantasy.
Yeah, Final Fantasy XIV, RuneScape, and fucking... There's a few games that get by with a subscription, but that's mostly because they've always had the subscription. And honestly, I'd say that Final Fantasy XIV is the one actual exception, because they released after most MMOs went free to play. They released with a subscription fee. And because XIV is just good, people just put up with it. But regardless, most games don't get away with that. Why would I bother paying? I'm not going to pay a subscription fee for a fucking game I could just go play Path of Exile for nothing. Right? So naturally they need a way to monetize. But we know Blizzard's track record with Diablo. It's basically offering no free like updates whatsoever. So it's really hard sell to put microtransactions in a game that may or may not get actual like content updates whatsoever.
We'll have to see. We're just going to have to see what they decide to do with it.
Yeah. As we said last week, that's the podcast from now on. Two-step podcast. We'll have to see.
Yep, pretty much. I mean, and that's really all that we can say about a lot of this stuff, because Blizzard has just shown that they're completely willing to just give empty promises just constantly. I mean, it's like, and we're not even memeing at this point. They just do that. It's just
this is not just this is a thing. This isn't even like recent things or even like last year things. This is one thing that Blizzard is consistent about is being inconsistent and lying. They promise everything and then they under-deliver, right? Over-promise, under-deliver. It's like the Blizzard fucking mantra.
And it's like the opposite of what you're supposed to do.
Yes, you're supposed to fucking under-promise and over-deliver. And frankly, that's that's not even hard to do. I remember back when they used to just shut their fucking mouth and say nothing. But now they can't do that because their PR is shit. So they have to say something. But saying something makes things worse.
Speaking of their PR being shit, we can skip one portion of it. So something that's interesting is that at this point, a lot of the devs that aren't directly responsible for the whole Hearthstone Blitzchung thing that's going on are trying to save a little bit of face right now. In particular, Jeff Kaplan and a lot of the just nameless Hearthstone devs are basically going out saying that they condemn the actions that were taken against Blitzchung in the Hearthstone thing, and it's like...
Yeah, okay, great.
It's been
it's meaningless.
It's old at this point. If they would have done it instantly, I would have given them credit. If it would have been the same exact day or the day after...
If Jeff Kaplan had made his... If Jeff Kaplan mentioned... If Jeff Kaplan mentioned this in like 1 or 2 days after they had said something, after the event happened, it might have more weight. But as it stands, it's clearly just PR bullshit.
Yep.
Right? He's being told to say this because he's got a reputable name within the community, right? So maybe fans will listen. Fuck you. I'm not a fucking dumbass. I can see right through that. It's glaringly obvious to anyone with half a brain cell.
It's super shitty too,
insulting.
because I actually do like Jeff Kaplan. He's one of the few...
As a general rule of thumb, yes. But he's also very neutral. He always toes the party line, I think, in this case.
He has been very neutral, but I have liked that in him, that he doesn't just like go full on who gives a shit.
Yeah, sure.
But this is kind of telling of where Blizzard is going from here on out. If Jeff Kaplan and some of the devs are kind of just like towing the party line, but going beyond that now, it's not looking good. You know, it's like
it's disingenuous.
It's really just
right. Basically, is the real issue. It's extremely disingenuous. Like, why should I care when you clearly don't yourself?
But last thing about Blizzard, and then we'll move on to other stuff, is that
yeah.
So we talked about how Overwatch 1 and 2 were going to be like joined games basically, but it's not an expansion. They were going to have the same PvP lobbies and matchmaking and all of that stuff. Well, now they're apparently going to be a joined game eventually, sometime in the future. It's like,
well, that was always rumored. For the record, that was rumored, but they've now confirmed it. More or less.
And it's like...
That was the difference.
It's like... Jeff Kaplan went out
But why does it have to be 2 different games, though? Why couldn't it
that's
just be
the part
an
that I don't understand. Like, Jeff Kaplan went out saying that they're going to show people how to really do a sequel to a game, and I'm like...
No, are you?
But
it doesn't look like
you? It doesn't feel like this is a sequel. It feels like it's an expansion.
It doesn't feel like this is necessary. Yeah, it's like this is like the definition of completely unnecessary. What's the fucking point?
I don't understand why they have a perfectly fine game that looks good. I mean, the graphics of Overwatch are honestly very good even now. Like, with it coming out years ago,
there's an aesthetic. They'll hold up because of the stylistic choice of making them cut. It's the same reason why World of Warcraft graphics recently hold. Like, even Cataclysm stuff actually holds up better. You know, after they stop using boxy trees, basically.
Yeah, dude. So yeah, it's we're gonna have to see, like, fucking I don't understand why this is a new game, why it's a sequel instead of an expansion, because the only thing that really feels like we're getting and the only reason is, like you said last week, monetization. That seems to be the only reason that it would ever be. I feel like they're just literally trying to pull the wool over people's eyes now with this revelation that this is exactly how it's going to happen.
The
is
reality
that it's being merged.
Is here. Yeah, the idea is simply that, as you said last week, the only reason that we can at least think about them making Overwatch 2 is because they want to change up the monetization. Okay, fine, but that's a really shitty reason to make a second game and to make me pay for it. I don't care if all of my shit are merged, right? Basically, you're making me pay another, $40, $50 for basically nothing. That could be expansion. I don't mind. Well, to be fair, if it was an expansion, we'd probably still pay $40, so whatever.
Sure.
But
But at least it's an expansion, and it's not like, oh, it's a new game, but just a thinly veiled excuse to try to suck more money out of you.
This might seem like petty semantics. Oh, well, what's the difference between an expansion and a video game if they're essentially the same price and they offer the same thing? The difference is perception. They can hype and market the shit out of this as a new game. That's disingenuous. And that's the kind of thing Blizzard have done in the past, where they will fucking completely overblow the idea of a completely new feature or a new game, and then it ends up being like nothing. Like, you know, when they fucking did a Warlords fucking entire content patch, and all it had was fucking selfie camera. Anyone remember that? I remember that!
I remember. But yeah, it's worrisome for where we're going from here, because it's like, Anyways, I honestly don't really want to talk much more about Blizzard. This is like the 4th week in a row that we talked about Blizzard, so we're just going to cut that early. 20 minutes is all you get of fucking Blizzard today. We're going to talk about other shit. Something that I do want to talk about. Have you watched any gameplay of Death Stranding, Meg?
A little bit. It looks boring as fuck.
And that's it looks so fucking weird, dude. Like, okay.
The description I would use for it is walking simulator.
Right. Okay. So it is a walking simulator
with inventory management.
That's what Vinny calls it. I'm talking about Vinny from Vinesauce. That's what he calls it. I watched him play it, and
I agree. It's an accurate,
I'm only really watching like about an hour of the gameplay because I just wanted to kind of get an idea so I could talk about it today. And holy fuck, is this game weird? Like, I know that Kojima is known for innovating, right? Like, I know that's his whole thing.
Bubble Bubble again.
Yeah, this plays a lot.
Did we get this last week?
It's got to be really popular because the songs are voted for by people. So, but anyways, Kojima is known for innovating, right? Kojima is also known for making movies, basically. I know that they're games. They're called games, but they're not. He's
also known for making weird shit, right?
Yes.
Basically, that's the 3 rules of Kojima. He's innovative. He makes movies, and they're all weird.
And innovative does not mean good. Like, let me absolutely remind you. Innovative does not mean good.
It just means different, really.
Yes.
He's very, what's the word? I don't know. Keep going. I'll think of it.
But yeah, so the thing about this game is that normal gameplay elements are not at play here. This isn't really a game where you would expect, like, I don't know how to describe it. It's an adventure, it's like an adventure action game, right? Huh, yeah.
But Kojima is esoteric.
Yes,
that's the type of games he makes. Like,
that's a good word.
They don't, I mean, he tries to make them for mainstream appeal, right? But they're clearly not going to be appreciated by anyone other than the kind of fucking mad genius he is.
This one
he makes them for himself.
Does not have much mainstream appeal besides the story. That's literally it. And even the story is kind of fucking weird.
The story's the story's fine. I think it's weird, Kojima weird. I think it's actually enjoyable. I think the story itself is enjoyable. The problem with the storyline, right, is that it's bogged down by really tedious, fucking monotonous, repetitive, boring gameplay. A game, just to... For fuck's sake, this fucking music. It's terrible.
It's just... We're not like trying to oversell the fact that this game is weird and boring. It very much so is. Like,
I mean, you fucking carry around a fetus in a jar.
Yeah.
For fuck's sake.
So like the gameplay, if you can really call it that, is literally just you walking. So okay. So I didn't realize when they said that there was a balance aspect to the game, right? So when I originally heard that there was well, I didn't understand the full like breadth of it. The balance aspect of the game is not... So what I thought that it was going to be, okay? I thought that what was going to happen is that you were going to have, like, packages and you had to balance them, like, on your back, like on the right and on the left to make sure that you were balanced, right? So it is that. But the extra step here is that you literally are playing and you can fall over. Like, you can literally just fall on your fucking ass, or you can fall to the right or fall to the left. Okay, so minor spoilers. One of the first quests that you do, you're carrying a corpse, right? And the corpse that you're carrying, there's story reasons as to why you need to carry this corpse. You're carrying this corpse to an incinerator. And this corpse, you carry it on your back, right? Well, the corpse throws you horribly off balance. And I mean, you literally just fucking fall constantly. Like, you're walking and it's like every 2 or 3 seconds you have to press a button to balance yourself. You take a slight turn, you have to press a button to balance yourself. That is the gameplay.
That's the gameplay, and
that's the gameplay.
Regardless of whether you think the story is good or not, which it might very well be. Sure, maybe. I don't know the ending of it. It might very well be, but I don't want to have to go through that. I was going to bring up another game that just ultimately is like the reverse direction, but is a much better game for it. And you've probably heard it, and you've probably heard people talk about it. Disco Elysium.
I have heard the name, but I haven't heard almost nothing about it.
Disco Elysium is a game that I really want to try. I don't know if I want to try it on stream, primarily because it's not a game. I mean, it is a game. It is interactive, right? But it doesn't have any combat. it doesn't have a lot of combat, right? It's effectively a dialogue game, right? You walk around, It has an insane... You know when you played old Baldur's Gate games, like the old CRPGs that BioWare used to make, Baldur's Gate, Neverwinter Nights, even Dragon Age Origins, and you'd talk to someone and they'd say something and then you'd have a bunch of choices. You know, like how I'm playing with Knights of the Old Republic 2, right? Lots of dialogue. That's basically the game. That is the game. There's tons of characters, they all have their own dialogue, and you make dialogue options. That's the general gist of it. There's an entire narrative, right? And that's the main thing. You're just exploring a narrative with a bunch of different choices. Somebody described it as effectively being one of the purest forms of D&D you could ever get. Because when you play Dungeons & Dragons, the majority of it is talking and role-playing, not actually doing combat. And Disco Elysium basically has zero combat whatsoever. And you have, like, your character development, for instance, your own personal character development is defined by you having internal monologues with different parts of yourself. It's very interesting. You fucking talk with like a fucking complete racist, talking and him trying to convince you that eugenics is right and is the way of the future. And you have to get past this guy, and there's only a few ways that you can do it, right? And so you either have to fucking, like, from what I understood, you either have to, if you can, depending on certain choices you're in, you can beat the shit out of him, sure, and possibly fail that, right? Or you can try and just, or you can become a fucking racist yourself and just fucking completely change your character entirely and just become like him, be persuaded, right? It's that kind of game. But what makes it good is the fact that it's a narrative-driven game with tons of dialogue options, tons of choices, but it isn't bogged down by pointless, repetitive gameplay, like Death Stranding
Like
is.
Death Stranding, yeah.
And in fact, funnily enough, as we played The Outer Worlds, I thought The Outer Worlds was good. I mean, I finished it, you may not have yet, but I thought The Outer Worlds was good. But Outer Worlds is a similar game in the sense that it's bogged down with relatively tedious combat. The combat's fine, it's serviceable,
it was something
but because it's not...
really felt was that it was just so... The combat didn't really capture me almost at all in Outer Worlds.
No, it's fine. I did it. It was perfectly acceptable for me to go through the entire game just shooting people with my overpowered pistol and be fine. But the reality is that there's nothing particularly captivating or memorable about the combat. They could have removed all of the combat sequences like Disco Elysium does, and I actually think The Outer Worlds would have been a better game, primarily because when you make a game and you decide to have lots of narrative options and combat, you have to devote time to doing both of those two things. You have to devote time to making the gameplay and making the narrative choices. Disco Elysium doesn't get bogged down by this because it just doesn't have any combat. Easy, right? Now all the developers just have to devote themselves onto the fucking, like, dialogue and stuff. Unfortunately, it makes it a much more niche game because a lot of people want to actually do something more than walking around talking to people.
That's the problem that I would have, is that generally when I'm playing a game, my whole purpose of playing the game is to interact with it and to actually play.
Yes.
Whereas
at the same time, I'd
much rather just a story. Just tell me the story.
But sure, but at the same time, Death Stranding would have been better. But at the same time, then you have things like Death Stranding where it's literally added gameplay purely because it seems like it has to, because it's a game. It thinks, well, this is a game, we have to have gameplay, so we're going to add the most monotonous, boring bullshit and just call it a day. That's Death Stranding. It wants to be narrative-driven. It wants to be like a movie. But then right at the last second, Kojima's like, oh shit, it's a game. We've got to add gameplay. Fuck it, let's just fucking jumble everything in there. Right? And it's completely worse off because
of note here, this is coming up later, but Kojima Studios is going to start making movies, which I think is good for them because I don't think they should keep making games at this point.
I think they could go either way. I think it's good for them, but I don't necessarily think it's going to be good for us.
Yeah.
I'll get onto that when we talk about it.
But yeah,
which won't be long.
So the game is very weird, right? We've spoken about how weird it is, but you really have to get into the story a little bit to see how really weird the world of the game is. But it's not just the game that's weird, it's the gameplay as well. And we spoke a little bit about the gameplay. There's some interacting with like enemies and stuff. But do you even know if you get a gun mag?
No. I don't think you do either.
I don't think you get a gun. I think you get like a thing that you can like choke people with, because there are enemies. There's humans that you fight, but they're like all of the enemies in the game just seem like they're just like these ethereal creatures that you can't really see, and they just...
You're supposed to bypass them more than anything by the looks of it.
Yeah, it's like I don't know, but
another game that would have been much better off.
More of it.
No, another game that would have been better, that is much, much better off, for instance. Another game that's much better off, for instance, because it's not bogged down by nearly as much repetitive combat, is like things like Telltale games. All of their games. But again, unless you really want to play a game with... To be honest, the biggest reason why I think it works for Disco Elysium and Telltale games is because I think your problem with it is true, right? It rings true in the sense that most people who play a game want to play a game, right? They just want to play a game. And so if you're just given a narrative, a story, it's like, well, why wouldn't you just give me it as a book or as a movie, right? But I think the reason why Disco Elysium and like Telltale games need to be a game and work right as an interactive medium is the same reason the Stanley Parable does. They have choices. That's it. They have choices. They have actual options and different methods, and those options affect things like the dialogue or future dialogue, and those don't make much sense in a movie. And the closest we've ever actually seen, right, to that as a movie was that Netflix thing with fucking Black Mirror.
Yeah,
the episode.
Yeah,
That's
I mean, basically like choose your own adventure Flash games from back in the day. There were a couple good ones of those actually.
But the reality is they're a game because that's the medium that's interactive, and they want to be interactive because they want to give you more than one avenue of choice. A movie only gives you one avenue, an actual movie.
Yeah, see, like anyway. I feel like with all of the innovation that fucking Kojima has, they'll figure something out. But it just
growing
really,
pains, perhaps.
I guess. Like the thing about it is I really feel like that's what Kojima's been working towards. You know, like ever since Metal Gear Solid 4. I feel that everything that he's tried to do has been trying to focus more on story than gameplay, but at the same time
other studios have done it already. Yeah. And he doesn't seem to ever look at those for inspiration whatsoever.
It just... I have to like... I would have to see what you really do in Death Stranding, like, to see how long it takes and if the repetitiveness is required. Because the thing is that for me, if the game is rather short, if you don't want to go around and do all the extra stuff, but you can still just see the main story,
excuse me,
that would be one thing, right? Like, I would actually be mostly okay with that. I wouldn't have a big problem with that at all. So, I guess we'll have to see. It comes out in March of next year for PC, right?
Yeah, we'll have to see. I don't know yet.
See, I only watched about an hour. I'm not going to watch much more. I just wanted to see, so...
Other than that, we might as well talk about him It's going to be on Epic and Steam, we may as well say that, and at the same time. So that's alright, that's good. Gives you options. I like that, that's fine. And we might as well talk about fucking Hideo Kojima and his production becoming a movie studio.
Yeah, so like we were saying, they are going to be making movies. As for what it means to be making movies... I don't know. I mean, are they going to be using their like integration software to December? Wait, Perry, it's in December? Wait, no. Is it?
What, the PC releases? Time to look it up. Death Stranding PC release. I didn't think it was that early, but you might be right.
It says PC version won't be ready until early summer of 2020.
Early summer of 2020. Yeah.
That might be like May then.
Either way,
it doesn't matter.
The thing that, either way, the movie thing is interesting because I saw a post. There was a comment made about it that I kind of agree with in the sense that Kojima's stories and his games work in the video game industry because the video game industry has stories that are relatively simple by design. The point being is that the kind of stories that Kojima writes for video games aren't the kind of stories that the majority of video game authors write, right? But honestly, that's not an untapped market in the movie industry. He's nowhere near as niche as you might think he is in the movie industry. And therefore, well, I think it's a good thing for him to do movies. And I honestly believe that's probably what he's always wanted to do, make movies. Right? I don't think that they're gonna necessarily be as well received as either he or his fans might either want them to be or hope that they'll be. Because it's a much bigger market, and the stuff that he does is nowhere near as weird as the stuff we've seen in movies. Basically, I reckon he could do B-grade movies really well, though.
That's gonna be the thing that's gonna be weird, is that, like, I mean, he's pulling in people like... He obviously has clout, right? Like, he obviously is able to pull in big names. We've seen that through the fact that Geralt de Tormo is a main character in the game. I mean, you've got Norman Reedus, Conan. I mean, obviously there's legitimately like
the point being
famous
is that
people.
he will probably the reality is that I think he could make a movie and it will do well, or at least find an actual major backing, purely because he's networked to shit, right? His networking skills are divine. They're very, very good. But that doesn't mean that. But it doesn't really matter who you get to pay for your production if the production is ultimately trash. You know, he's very much, in my opinion, and I've said this too before. He's very much, in my opinion, a George Lucas kind of character. He's a mad genius. He has a lot of genius, but it needs to be filtered out by people who are much more competent in actually making and producing a product. He has lots of great ideas, and they need to be filtered through actual logistical people. You know, people who actually know how to release a product that actually makes sense and is good. If he can get those people, then amazing. I'm not convinced Death Stranding had enough of those people, which doesn't fucking color a, bright picture for any movie studio if it has the same people.
Yeah, we're gonna have to see, because I really don't know if that's something that he's going to be able to do. And as our new catchphrase has become, I guess we'll see.
We'll just have to see.
Old catchphrase was technical difficulties, which honestly we still have.
Don't worry. We'll still have those.
Yeah, so let's move on. Okay, buddy.
Man, early summer 2020 is like now. Where's Death Stranding, bitches? What the fuck? It's summer now, where I'm at.
Yeah, dude.
The fuck is that?
It's summer there. It's not summer here.
It's summer in the right hemisphere. I don't know what you're on
about
about.
the left hemisphere?
Fuck them.
Anyways, so let's see here. A couple things here on the next section of Promising You the World. Let me pull this up here, because I need to get this stuff up. Oh, here we go. I actually really like this song. This is one of my favorite old time songs. I remember back when I was a kid, this game, Super Mario Land specifically, I played a lot more on my Game Boy than a lot of older games at that time. Because this is a game that I had on like the original gray and white Game Boy, right? Like the one with the green fucking screen on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, this game I played quite a bit. Alright, so first thing here is, let's pull this up on this here. Let's get rid of that and get rid of and show this. So, this is interesting to me because, and the only reason I'm bringing this one up is just because of the title of this section here, is Square Enix is developing a new IP that, quote, goes beyond the framework of existing action games, end quote. This is something that every company is saying right now. This is the hot new thing to say, we're doing something that no one else is doing. And you go into here, and they say, the ad says that Square Enix aims to realize a next-generation action game experience that goes beyond the framework of existing games. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, but this is pointless. It's vague, blah, blah, blah shit that doesn't really say anything.
Wank. Like, look, that's the end of the article.
And I would like to put, it's 3 paragraphs long. It's a title in 3 paragraphs. It's like nothing.
This is something that's rampant in the video game industry right now, because they realize that hype and nostalgia are the two main contributing factors that sell games.
They're really easy to sell. Yeah. I mean, we know, and if they didn't figure out by games, they probably figured out with movies doing tons of remasters.
Yep.
Nostalgia sells really fucking well. And this article is brought up specifically because all of the fucking articles that we have in the Promising You the World sector pretty much are the same thing, right? Yeah. Pretty much the same thing.
It's just that, like, so that's the first one, you know. It says they're going to go beyond the framework of existing action games.
Yeah, let's get
that literally means jack shit. What does that actually mean?
No, nothing. It's vague and has no fucking real substance whatsoever.
Like, show me actual data, show me actual information, because, like, so with Death Stranding, right, we got no information about the game, and now that I've seen the game, I honestly feel like the lack of information was purposeful, right? They were building up this hype for the game, but they probably realized, or someone told them, that the gameplay sucks. It's not actually gameplay, right? It's just a story. So they've been hyping up the story of the game, making it seem weird, making people be like, oh shit, what is this? What are they going to do? What are they going to do? And then you get it, everybody buys it, the first couple hours are interesting, you can't return it. It's like, okay, but now I'm bored because I'm tired of carrying packages around and doing literally fuck all. Like, okay, cool.
So, and let's just skip ahead to the extra topic. I got the articles up here on my screen, right? All of them all the major ones. We don't need to talk about Kojima anymore because we already did that. Fuck him. The other two sections here is Skyrim, Fallout 3, and Mass Effect devs band together to make studio, and Pokemon Sword and Shield are missing over 50% of the Pokédex. Now we'll get onto the second one in a second because the reality is all of these have the same problems, right? So Square Enix is developing new IP that goes beyond the framework of existing action games. Oh yeah, fucking pointless PR wank. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't tell us anything. Skyrim, Fallout 3, and Mass Effect devs start new studio and announce new game. They haven't actually announced anything. They've just announced that they're developing the game. This is a little bit of a bigger article, but it should be noted that when you actually look at the people involved, like the devs that have decided to start a new studio aren't really anyone you've probably ever heard of or anyone of particular import, right? For instance, we have one of the artists, so a lead designer for Mass Effect 3, that's about the best you've got there. An artist for Skyrim, yeah, a fucking artist. Yes, that's great. Yes, they did. So, Rasha Reddick for Mass Effect 3, an artist for the Elder Scrolls Sky. He was, I also believe, okay, here's the real quote. Corner Wolves, which is the game I believe, doesn't have a release date, but it's already got a number of high-profile names behind it, including Manveer Ear, a lead designer. I have heard his name. He was the lead designer. So this would mean that the gameplay of the game could be good, so that's a good sign. A lead designer so he was a lead designer for Mass Effect 3. We have Rasha Reddick, who I've never heard of. He was an artist for Elder Scrolls Skyrim. You will never have heard of him because he's an artist, right? Like, do you actually know any of the artists for Blizzard's games? No, they have their own website, by the way. You should check it out. Their art's fucking amazing, but I don't remember any of their names, right? You have fucking Evan Narcisse, or whatever, the writer behind Marvel's recent Rise of the Black Panther graphic novel. Okay, great. So that's not only not a video game, but it's also a graphic novel that I've never heard of by an author I've never heard of. It will also feature music by Grammy Award-winning Just Blaze and be produced by Brian Adaby Smith, an industry veteran who has worked on titles such as Sleeping Dogs, Def Jam Vendetta, and more. I'm sorry, and more. I'm gonna need more than just Sleeping Dogs and Def Jam Vendetta. I've never heard of Def Jam Vendetta. Sleeping Dogs was good, but nowhere near as successful as people seem to think it was, and I've never heard her name, because why would you? Why would you ever hear the names of the people who produce shit?
Is like, they throw out all of these names and everything, but I've seen better studios with more clout and more famous people make terrible games. So, throwing out a bunch of names doesn't do shit for me.
As an example, no, it doesn't do anything for... Well, it does for me, but it depends on the name. For instance, like, this is the same as having a new movie, and those movies being like, produced by the same fucking cocksucker that made Pacific Rim! And it's like, fucking directed by the dude who done this other fucking movie that was good. It's like, yeah, but a movie and a video game and all of these are more than just who directs them, right? Yeah, it's great that you got the director of Avengers or fucking Deadpool to make your movie, but who gives a shit if the producers are shit? If he has so much studio interference and he doesn't actually get to make the movie that he wants to, it doesn't fucking matter if we have Taika Waititi doing fucking crack along some hooker's asshole. Or playing Hitler. Which looks like a good movie, by the way.
Yeah. But yeah,
that's a reference.
So the idea is that, like, this list of games, right? Mass Effect 3...
ending sucked.
It was an okay game. There's nothing wrong with the game itself. It's way better than the Andromeda series.
But the ending is terrible. Then you have what?
Fallout 3 and Skyrim, games, which I mean is fine. But
yeah, those are no, but they're not though. Okay, so the thing is that of the 3 games that I've listed, Mass Effect 3 is legit the best one from a gameplay perspective.
Sure.
Skyrim and Fallout 3 are fine. They're fun, yes, right? But they're made infinitely better if you mod the game. If you couldn't mod the shit out of those games, both of those games, right? They'd be garbage. Nobody would give a fuck. And the only reason nobody gives a shit about Mass Effect 3 is because the ending sucks. But as long as they don't have fucking, fucking writing, going anywhere near the writing, then fuck it, I'm fine.
And the thing about Mass Effect 3's ending, the whole thing about it, because this is something I don't think we've ever talked about, and it's always something that's dear to my heart, is because I quit Mass Effect 3 halfway through the game, right? And then I watched the ending. Yeah, I quit halfway through the game because there were 2 or 3 things that pissed me off. But
okay.
But there's two problems with Mass Effect 3's ending, right? The first one is that the whole game gave you the illusion that your choices mattered. That was the major problem that everyone had. The second problem...
But it's not just that the game did that.
The whole series, right? Yeah, so like...
Yeah, the studio was hyped the game up as being... and having lots of player agency, and in the end, you don't have any agency. The ending's always the same. That was the big disappointment, I think.
The big problem that was for me, right? The biggest actual problem I have with the game, and you might disagree with me here, Mag, is that the devs didn't own up to it, right? What the devs did is they conceded...
Oh, you mean to the ending?
Yes, they didn't just own up and say, we made that
that's
ending.
Bullshit. What they did is, instead of doing that, it's not just that they conceded and go, we did that, right? They didn't own up to these decisions. What they did was they tried to make excuses about why it ended the way it is, and then at the very fucking end of it all, they released a fucking hackneyed fucking, expanded edition that was basically giving a middle finger to everyone involved. It's basically, what's his fucking, I'm gonna get his name up. I am going to fucking name drop this fucking asshole. Fuck him, I don't care.
Right,
I wouldn't want to work with him anyway.
But that's the thing, is that, like, they didn't just... If they would have just let the ending go, or if they would have issued a patch that would have just made it so that your choices forced you into whatever side that you got, right? Because obviously there can't be a bajillion endings, right? But just make it so that if you're a renegade the entire time, get the renegade ending. If you're a fucking Paragon the entire time, get the Paragon ending. If you kind of fall somewhere in between,
you don't want rainbow endings.
Give you a gray ending, right? Like, that's fine. Just give me those 3 endings, but don't make it so that I can be an asshole the entire time, and then at the very end I'm just like...
Alright, here are the 2 people that
maybe
I
I'm not
fucking
an asshole.
hate.
Go ahead.
Here are the 2 people that... I'm name dropping these because these people would deserve to take responsibility for their actions, and one of these assholes actually, just basically just gave us the middle finger. The actual writer for Mass Effect 3, the main writer, is credited as Mac Walters, right? And the second person who has been considered the biggest problem with the game was the director, Casey Hudson. Because rumours had it, when the original game was leaked, Casey Hudson and Mac Walters effectively went into a fucking room without any of the other writers on board, because a video game is more than just one writer, and they basically just joked each other off about how fucking awesome their fucking egos and their fucking whatever are. They just went, our storyline's so fucking good, look at everything we're doing! Fucking the original writer, fucking Drew Karpshin or whatever his name is. Now, I don't think he's a flawless writer, but this is the guy who wrote the original 2 games. He was the guy who wrote Knights of the Old Republic, right?
Which were good.
He's pretty good at making video games. He's pretty good at making video game stories. His weakest, in my opinion, was actually the Old Republic and some of the books he wrote. Like the whole Revan novel, he can fucking piss off with that. That was fucking terrible. I'm sorry, dude. Yeah, I'm sorry, dude. It's just not good. Just the whole retcons. As I was saying to you before, right? I don't like fucking what they did with Revan, but regardless, his fucking trap record is good. And Mass Effect 3 is like, it wasn't even supposed to go that way. It was supposed to actually have the whole, entropy. There was supposed to be, entropy as a fucking thing, right? And, fucking, what's it called? Fucking dark matter or black matter or whatever was supposed to have a fucking play on it either. It wasn't supposed to be basically grotesquely fucking 80s movie apocalypse bullshit. Really, really simple for a game that fucking had 3 fucking games. It's upsetting. Gameplay, I like the game though. I just wouldn't play it because the ending, knowing that the ending is coming, it sours my experience of replaying the game. It's the same reason why Far Cry 4 pisses me off. Because it's like, it's a great fucking game. No, Far Cry 5, sorry.
Do you know when I quit Mass Effect 3? Do you know the moment that did it for me?
What was the moment?
The moment that did it for me was when you see the photo of Talizora.
Oh yeah, no, that's terrible.
That's the moment that I actually quit the game. It was after the scene with it was after the scene with what's it called?
Face.
What's the scene with the Solarian? What is his name? Where he just randomly sacrifices himself for no fucking reason. Yeah, Morty.
No,
whatever.
He sacrifices himself. Morty. He sacrifices himself ultimately because he's going to. It was
he's
for the
old
fucking. It was.
Yeah.
It's not that he's old. It was related to the fucking Krogan, right? The idea was that the idea is that the Solarians, in the original Mass Effect lore, the Solarians they invented this technology that prevented the Krogans from reproducing, because the Krogans were extremely warlike and destroyed not only their own planet but every other planet they went on. So the Solarians Solarians did what they thought was necessary for galactic survival, and they basically invented the genophage, which prevented them from reproducing properly.
Which is good.
Which is good, but one of the endings you can get if you're Paragon is reverse that effect, and he sacrifices himself to do that.
Yeah, I knew all that.
Here it
it's
is.
just that he didn't need to die to do it, I'm pretty sure.
No, he didn't. This is the face reveal.
Yeah,
I would like to point out that this is terrible just looking at it again.
So the problem with the image, if you're looking on Mag's stream right now, I'll pull this up during the editing, hopefully. I might forget, who knows. But the problem with this image right here is that this is a stock photo. They took a stock photo from the internet, like shock shutter photos, whatever. They took the stock photo from the internet, they edited some elf ears onto it, and that was the image. So the reason that this is a big deal, right, is that Tali Zora is in both of the previous games. She's a romantic interest and she's a major character, right?
Photo! God, it's terrible!
It's like literally just a stock photo.
So, but they just, it's just a stock photo, but then they put filters on it to make her look alien.
Yeah.
The worst part I had about this whole thing was a couple of things. It's not just that she's a major character that you can romance, and for the record, she was one of the favourite romance options for the game. Because let's be honest, most of the people playing the game are fucking nerds. She was the most relatable character for basically all of us, right? Absolutely. Right? Fucking, Miranda was fucking hot, but completely unrelatable for basically everyone. Fucking, what's a social life? I've never heard of that.
I 100% agree.
I don't know what that is.
I agree with everything.
Right? The only other character that was remotely, in my opinion, probably potentially relatable was like Liara in the second one. Right? Who is what I romanced the first time I played the game. But anyways, that's beside the point. The point being here is that she is someone who never takes off her mask, her helmet, because if she does, she effectively dies. She can't live in any other atmosphere other than her original planets, which has been basically fucked due to a war she had, right? Due to a war her people had. And so the entire concept is that she is really fucking alien. I mean, there's only one area in Mass Effect 2, if you romance Tali, you can see her... Oh, for fuck's sake.
Anyways, there's only one section of the... There's only one... Yeah, go ahead. Continue since you're back.
There's only one area of the game where you ever see her face, and you don't actually see her face. Your character does. Shepard actually sees it, right? They go through a lot of fucking trouble to actually to do that. Like, the characters themselves go through trouble, right? To make that scene a thing. And they never show it because it's supposed to be mysterious. That's the whole appeal to it. You're never supposed to know how alien she looks. And then they release this... Not only is it extremely lazy to just get a stock fucking footage and just edit the shit out of her, but she's just humanoid, like every other fucking garbage alien in Mass Effect. They're so generic, honestly. All the aliens in Mass Effect are generic as fuck.
Yeah, so it's like, because they
just didn't care.
They didn't care, and it's the thing that pushed me over the edge for the series, because I'm just like, okay, I've done the Tali Zora route for both games now, right? And now I'm here, and it's just like, okay, that's her face. It's a stock photo. And it looks terrible, by the way. It looks horrible.
I mean, look, well, this is, I mean, in the game itself, it just looks like this. It looks about as blurry and JPEG as you could imagine.
Yeah, because it's a picture on his desk.
We get?
He just picks it up and looks at it for like 2 seconds, and that's the big reveal. That's the whole thing. And I'm like,
what I love the most about it is that we're thousands of years in the future, but we still have JPEG.
Yeah, dude.
I mean, it makes sense. Fuck this game.
But anyways,
no.
But that's basically what
happened. Let's go to the other topic that I got up here. Pokemon Sword and Shield's full Pokédex seems to be leaked. Yeah, they removed 50% of the Pokemon. That's
terrible, by the way.
Disappointing.
This is 2019. Games have fucking... You can download games, right? Everyone has internet access nowadays. If you have a Switch and you buy a Pokemon game, almost assuredly you have internet access at least for some part of the day, right? And it's unacceptable that a game company that is the most successful game series, most successful brand series of all time, it's not just game. Pokemon is the most successful, like...
Oh, yeah.
What's the word that
It's the most successful media franchise in
media
the world,
franchise
right?
of all time. of the world. It is the largest. It is the most notable. Everyone knows what a Pokemon is. You could go ask your grandma what a fucking Pokemon is, and she knows what it is.
You probably won't get to see this very well on the stream, but this is what I'm showing now is a grid of all of the Pokemon, right? Ever made. So this is it, right? Green denotes Pokemon still in the game, while dark green signals that creature has a new Galarian variant. White backgrounds, meanwhile, pinpoint Pokemon who've been cut. Now, you don't need to necessarily see all the Pokemon on this list, right? All you need to know is that at least 40 to 50% of this grid is not there. It's white. This is all the Pokemon. There are over 800 total Pokemon, and at least 300 to 400 of those are missing, including every single starter line except for Charizard. And I would like to point out that only fucking like last year, I think, fucking Game Freak or fucking the Pokemon Company released a poll asking like people what their favorite Pokemon was in Japan, and there are lots of Pokemon on this list that don't meet. There are a lot of the top 100 Pokemon in Japan. Many of them don't reach this list, including the #1 Pokemon, Greninja, or his pre-evolutions. That is still not here.
Yeah, I don't understand that at all. I feel like something happened, right? Like they set a deadline and they were unwilling to push it back is what I feel like happened.
No, but you know what's worse about this? No, that's not what's worse about this. What is significantly worse about this thing is that in the 3DS era, Pokemon X and Y specifically, what Game Freak did was they upscaled and remade all of the models and the animations for all of the Pokemon at the time. Right, which was already well over like 600 or so at the time. They remade every single model and animation for Pokemon X and Y on the 3DS, and they're all 4K models, by the way, right? And that is the reason why the 3DS games lag so much, because they're using and why it doesn't have anti-aliasing. Because they're using high definition models on a system that doesn't support it. The idea was to future-proof the game for when they did have a home console Pokemon release. Now we have a home console Pokemon release, and instead of using all the models and all the animations that they have, they don't want to bother. All they have to do is remake the fucking, all they had to do was only make the new Pokemon's models and the new Pokemon's animations, right? They don't have to redo all of them. And
they couldn't do that.
And I'd like to point out that I almost guarantee you two things. One, many of the trainers you fight will have tons of Pokemon that are on this list that you can't get, meaning they're in the fucking game, but you can't capture them. And two, you'll be able to fucking hack your game and put the Pokemon in. I guarantee you the models and the animations and the coding for the Pokemon are in the game. They just don't want to give you options to capture them because fuck you. And for the record, I don't mind the idea that you can only capture... I don't have a problem with the idea that you can only capture the current generation and maybe a few fan favorites, right? You know, we have 800 Pokemon. I get that. Fine, we can't capture all the Pokemon. That's not really the issue I have. I don't even have an issue with cutting 50% of the Pokemon. Realistically, I have an issue with the choices of Pokemon they've cut specifically, right? And I have a problem with the fact that they did this while also marketing this game as being the next big Pokemon ever. Not to mention, it's 50% more price. It costs 50% more to buy this fucking game than any other generation. If they wanted to make it so that, the point being here for me is if they wanted to reduce the amount of Pokemon in the Pokemon series, they should have done this like 4 generations ago, not fucking 8 generations into the fucking series, and then charge us more. And I get it, yeah, fucking quantity doesn't always mean quality, but the thing is, all the leaks that we've seen about this game honestly don't make it that great. They don't have fuck all quality of life changes. It's just a by-the-books generic Pokemon game, but you're missing 50% of the Pokemon. So why bother? So you're missing 50% of the Pokemon, you're getting basically the same game as the old Sun and Moon, and it costs 50% more. What the fuck am I getting for this game?
Nothing. You're getting ripped off is what you're getting. And that's the problem.
I need to, yeah.
It's just, it's disingenuous that a company as big as that can be...
No, it's bullshit.
Can do nothing.
It's total bullshit. They're the biggest fucking media franchise in the world, right? They don't have a single fucking acceptable excuse whatsoever. I like to point out that fucking Zelda, right? The Legend of Zelda made Breath of the Wild. They were prepared to completely innovate and remake the game from the ground fucking up to try and stay modern and in touch with the current gaming demographic. And for the record, the Zelda team on Breath of the Wild isn't different than other Zelda games. The director of Breath of the Wild has been the same director for the last like 5 to 10 years. So it's not like Game Freak couldn't do that. It's that two things are happening here, I've heard at least. One, Game Freak just don't give a shit. They're just completely fucking lazy, incompetent, and just doing the bare minimum to make money. Bloody. That's what I've heard. Or two, or the second one, which is an interesting rumor, and it is a rumor, this is pure speculation here, there are nothing to fucking back this up, is that Nintendo is strong-arming them. Nintendo could be strong-arming them. That might seem like a weird thing. Why would Nintendo deliberately fucking make their game, their biggest media franchise, terrible? Well, it could be because Game Freak still own 33% of the company, and Nintendo may want more of that pie. By basically throwing them under the bridge, they could potentially cause them to sell out and then own all of that. I just don't see why. It's an interesting thought, but I don't see the motive. I don't know what the motivation is. It doesn't, you know.
Yeah, it actually seems like a pretty interesting thought. So something there is that. So let's kind of like let's like condense and reaffirm here, because we went on a huge tangent there. So Pokemon are moving over half of the Pokedex, right?
Yeah.
So we're losing how many hundreds of Pokemon? It's a lot, right?
It's a lot. If I can get the exact number,
let's see. Yeah, so pull up the exact number for us here in a moment.
According to the existing thread, which has posted believable images of creatures within the game, there are 400 total monsters in the compendium. So there are something like 400 monsters, new monsters, or 400 monsters total. Hang on, let me see. You continue, and I'll look this up.
Yeah, so there's that many in the game, right? There's that many that are just not going to be there. And this is a company that's worth billions.
Yeah.
Billions of dollars.
So it will... Okay, here we go.
There's no excuse. And didn't you say the models are already made for all of the old stuff? So this is just stuff that's in the game.
So here's,
like you said, I promise you that the game can load it.
There are 809 Pokemon in total. There are 400 Pokemon in Sword and Shield to catch. So that means that 400 Pokemon are missing.
You know, just a few. It's fine.
And that depends, and I'm not even sure if that 809 Pokemon includes the Galarian, the new Pokemon. It probably doesn't. So there's actually slightly more than just 400. And yeah, they have the models. It's not a space constraint. And you know what the worst part about this whole thing is? They recently said, where's that article? Let me pull that up, because it's fucking hilarious how much fuel they're dumping on this fire. I love it. I'm a Pokemon fan, if you couldn't tell. I've always been a Pokemon fan, right? And it's really depressing. Yeah, it's really depressing for me that they do this, and I can't justify buying it. Here, so let me bring this up as well. The developer behind Pokemon Sword and Shield confirms that future games in the Collectible series will feature a limited Pokédex. See, this would have been fine if they had announced this before making this game. Put it that way, right? I reckon a lot of this drama could have been avoided if they had done this for the next game and not basically finding out this stuff from leaks is basically the worst possible fucking thing that could have happened to Game Freak.
Dude, but you're telling me you don't like being able to pre-order a game and then not getting the game that they promised? Heresy.
I mean, guess what? That's what I did.
Yeah.
I always pre-order Nintendo games. I always pre-order Nintendo games because I'm going to have to buy them retail.
It hasn't been like a problem in the past.
Right? No, because I don't generally believe in pre-ordering. I get that, right? But in my opinion, I was always going to buy it on release. I was always going to buy it on day one. So there's no point in not pre-ordering it. And two, I always buy physical copies. I don't buy digital copies of my Nintendo games. It's just better to buy physical copies, right? Because the price difference isn't the same like it is with digital copies on Steam. So I got to go cancel my pre-order. It's so fucking ass. It's like we currently have, and I don't know how that works, by the way. I may not be able to, so we'll see.
Yeah.
We currently have no plans to make the Pokemon that are missing from the Galar Pokédex available in game. This is an approach that we want to continue with in future Pokemon games. Again, that would be fine if they hadn't announced this fucking literally it comes out in 3 days or 4 days.
They announced it like a week
and
ago.
this article was on the 10th. No, this article was yesterday.
Oh.
For fuck's sake, alright?
Wait,
This
was
is
it
not
yesterday?
Yes!
It was
Yes!
actually yesterday? Holy
Yes!
shit.
The game comes out on the fucking 15th. This is terrible, right? So, up until now, it hasn't been possible to encounter every Pokemon in every game, so people had to transfer them from old games to the new game. This is true. However, they did say the Pokemon Home app is currently in development, in which players can collect their various Pokemon, and only Pokemon in the Galar Pokedex can be transferred from there to Sword and Shield. Meaning you cannot get any of the Pokemon that you caught in Sun and Moon or X and Y or any of that. Basically, if you got Pokemon Bank back on the 3DS era, none of the Pokemon in Pokemon Bank would even be able to be transferred to Pokemon Home. I'd also like to mention that Pokemon Bank fucking costs money, and Pokemon Home costs money. And if you decided to stop subscribing to Pokemon Bank, there was a very high likelihood that all of your Pokemon stored there were deleted. But the way of playing is actually not very different from before with Pokemon Bank, except that Pokemon Bank doesn't exist. Up until now, you have always only been able to meet Pokemon from a certain region. We encourage people to use Pokemon Home, of course you do, you want me to pay you money, fuck you, to collect their Pokemon from old games. You can't collect the Pokemon from old games because you can only have the fucking goddamn Galarian, and you just fucking said that! Are you stupid? Did you not fucking read your own bullshit statements before you made this crap up? Fuck me! It's time for mag rage!
So,
Fucking...
anyways, he's very passionate about Pokemon, you can tell. And this is a huge injustice, but moving on to the last couple things, because we're hitting time and we kind of don't want to go to an hour and a half anymore. China, once again, in the news. This is super interesting to me because I'm curious to see how they enforce it. China is trying to enforce limits on adolescent gaming. So these limits, I'm pulling these numbers from the top of my head, but I think I got it. Is that on weeknights you can game for 90 minutes, and for weekends you can game for 3 hours.
Yeah, it was like
90 minutes a night.
Go, right? You want to know why that's never going to work? Think about all the times your parents tried to fucking tell you not to do shit as a kid, and you do it anyway. Kids, right? Kids are going to find out ways around this. It's like in Korea, they have the same system in like South Korea, and the kids just use their parents' accounts because the parents aren't limited to this, right? So obviously they'd have to make the adults limited as well. That won't go down well at all. Right? And people are saying, oh yeah, well it's easier for the parents to fucking restrict their fucking kids from doing it if it's the government doing it. It's like, do you really think a 14-year-old gives a giant fucking toss about what the government thinks? Right? Here's the thing, we know for a fact that the more fucking pressure that you put on a young fucking child or a teenager, right, the more likely they are to resist. And that's not even just children, that's just people in general, right? The more you oppress someone, the more likely they are to push back, right? If you take all of the control from somebody, they will eventually push back. How do you think fucking rebellious children who go into prostitution and fucking drug use end up? That's one of the big resounding reasons. Because their parents were shit. Or because they just had a lack of freedom in some other way, right? They want to rebel because it's their way to escape. By removing video games as an avenue of escape, all you're really going to fucking see, right, is either very, very upset, depressed, bored children, which I guess is what the government wants, or more likely you're going to see them looking at other methods of escape.
And that's
maybe more self-destructive.
Yeah, it's probably going to be much more self-destructive. So China doing China things, they're trying to control people. What's new? Red Dead Redemption 2... absolute fucking catastrophe on PC. Constant crashes, constant freezes, doesn't really work properly. Most of the stuff is buggy. I mean,
at least it looks better than WWE did.
That's
Whee!
Yeah.
No, that's not a debate. All right, it doesn't have janky fucking animations that rip the fucking skin off the face of the characters.
I mean, we're really not saying much there, but that is true. Yeah. And then this one is interesting. Too much booby for the good boys and girls.
Oh,
now, if you don't get where that quote is from, so that specific quote is that Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Here, let me pull this up. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. My Shiranui is too booby for the good boys and girls of Smash Ultimate.
And if you don't know who Mai is, she's like fucking.
She's on the screen.
She's a King of Fighters, Dead or Alive character. There you go. Good. It's because she's like, she just wears robes and like shit.
Yeah, so they pulled in a bunch of the they pulled in a bunch of SNA characters that they're going to talk about in the game, and he said that there's going to be a stage for the King of Fighters, and it's going to have a lot of the favorite characters. But he said, and I quote, that my Shiranui will not have a cameo in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate because the game is for good boys and girls of many different ages.
Specifically,
can you guess why?
Yeah,
they're not putting her in boys and girls?
The resounding argument lies in the resounding theory, I think, because I haven't actually seen anything to bank this up by either what's his name or otherwise, but the resounding logic is Zero, the computer entertainment rating organization. The idea is that they delivered Mai to her for rating, and they denied her classification, or at least they probably would have bumped her up from being PG, right? And instead of censoring her like the Bayonetta developers did, to allow Bayonetta to be in Smash, they just said, fuck you, I'm not censoring my Shura, right? I'm not censoring her. She's supposed to be fucking like this, lewd and shit. Fuck you. That's really, that seems to be the reason why. She's too booby! She's too booby for Smash!
She's booby and every fucking thing else, dude.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is, and that's the fact is they could have easily just censored her, but they obviously chose not to. They wanted to preserve her design. I think it's respectful. I don't have a problem with this decision at all. It's fucking whatever to me.
Yeah, I mean, it is what
I'm sitting for my
What
fans, I'm sure, but yeah. Well, they could have, like I said, they could have censored her like Bayonetta did, but fuck that, right? Like, censoring Bayonetta is bad enough as far as I'm concerned. Like, fucking what the hell? How do you censor Bayonetta? The whole point is half her outfit is supposed to make her empowering. That was the whole point, right? That she can wear whatever the fuck she wants, because if you don't like it, she'll beat the shit out of you.
But yeah, boys, that's pretty much gonna be it, though. That's all we got. There honestly wasn't a lot, but, you know, we're pretty good at filling an hour.
Just me raging about Pokemon. It's fine.
Yeah, man. That's gonna be it. We will catch you guys next time. Make sure that if you're watching the YouTube video, you can find everything down in the description below. You can find our Twitter handles if you're listening on SoundCloud or Spotify for some reason, which, I mean, you know, but it is what it is. Some people are going to do that. Nobody does. But
some people do SoundCloud. Nobody does Spotify, though.
If you're listening there, you can find information in the description of the channel, in the biography, whatever it's called on each of those mediums. But yeah, follow us on Twitter. Myself and Mag, I stream all weekend, Mag streams all week. You can find their times and everything there. Make sure to join our Discord servers. They are both live. Yours is live now, right? Yours is public?
Yep.
Is it?
Yep.
Mine is too. Yep. You can find links to those everywhere as well. We'll start adding those. Yep, that's gonna be it, boys.
Yabbo!
So we will catch you next week. One caveat of next week, Mag is going to be at ExileCon. So it's probably going to be on our Monday stream is when we're going to do the podcast. So we'll figure out the time sometime between now and then. So
follow my Twitter. I'm going to post pictures out the ass.
Yeah, get ready for some fucking ExileCon
just
shit.
For this. Fuck.
Yeah, that's going to be it, boys.
Time to get Instagram.
We'll catch you later.
See you later, dudes.